I think it's going to be B.J. Thompson, the edge out of Stephen F.
Oh,
Austin.
my goodness. Let's go.
All right, so this is kind of interesting
I love
because
that pick.
I do too. And here's where, there was some connection and some discussion about Will McDonald a little bit earlier in the draft as a potential target for the Kansas City Chiefs. They went out and grabbed a guy that has somewhat, not entirely similar profile, but they're going with a little bit of a lighter edge. They're going with a 238-pound edge. He's 6'5", 238-pound edge. He has a very unique athletic profile, a high-level athlete, transitioned to the edge position. He won the dunk competition, didn't he?
He did win the dunk competition when he was out there at Baylor, I believe. Yes, I correct. Super athlete, a very long, wiry individual there at the combine, or testing there. 6'6", 240 pounds, but super long arms, super angular build. When we got to see him at the East-West Shrine game, we saw an individual that was a lot more fluid than a player with his kind of levers and his kind of leverage. His spin move, the very first time he hit that in a Shrine game, our jaws dropped. Yeah,
it was probably the best pass rush move we saw down there at the Shrine game was B.J. Thompson's spin move coming off of as a defensive end. I got his measurables here. His RAS is over 9, so they stake with the athletes.
There you go. Yep.
Now, he did his pro day while sick. I do remember that. He was sick during his pro day, but he still worked out. He's 6'6", 243 pounds at his pro day, 37.5-inch vertical, 10.5-foot broad, essentially.
Holy cow.
Ran a 4.61 40 with a 1.57 10-yard split, a 7.06 3-cone, 4.48 shuttle.
We talked about with Felix earlier in the draft that getting under that 7.3 cone is very indicated, but being right there at it is also really good.
I believe
and
the big cutoff is 7.2 on the 3-cone. So the big cone is being under 7.2 and then having like over a 9'6" or 9'8" broad jump. He clears both of those pretty well. So he's a super athletic rusher that we love. We love the upside that he has. Like, there's so much athleticism there. He was a good enough athlete to go to Baylor straight out of high school, and then he'll get playing time to find a better fit. He's moving on to Stephen F. Austin. So this is a phenomenal pick here by the Chiefs on the athletic talent.
I love it. And honestly, with his sort of build, you wonder if you make him maybe put on a little bit more weight because he is so thin. You don't want to sap that athleticism. If you want to keep him as a designated pass rusher and just leave him at that weight, perfectly fine with that. But that being said, he does have some room maybe to put on a little bit of weight.
Yeah, it's fun to see this departure, in a round like this.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about like, hey, maybe don't go Will McDonald in round 1 just because like that is a very specific defined role. You may not be able to get a full-time player out of him.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get more of a designated pass rusher within the scheme. They did visit with Will McDonald earlier in the year. Guess what? They also visited with B.J. Thompson. They've been you're connected. We might just have to go run through the top 30 visits here in a little bit because the Chiefs keep grabbing some of these guys that they are connected to with their top 30 visits. But B.J. Thompson, a little bit on the lighter side. But I'm just gonna. I know you guys were just reading the relative athletic scores out, but if you everything's green, except for the shuttle's not great. And the weight, but like everything else is just like it's like just freakish athletic ability and on the smaller frame, but like you can't find this.
And we bring up the weight for the specific reason that it does show up against the run.
Yeah,
he gets pushed around a little bit against the run, so that's something that from a technique standpoint you're going to have to develop and work out. But once again, this is a Steve Spagnuolo guy from a length perspective, but not from a weight or from a style of play perspective either. I mean, guy that's going to win with a little more athleticism, a little more fluidity. He doesn't know exactly what to do here. I feel like we've been talking about this a lot throughout the entire draft, a lot of technique stuff. But once again, you're giving him to Joe Cullen. It's a high upside potential swing here. We loved the Josh Kando pick a couple of years ago because, again, a high upside athlete edge that you can trust to do some of the things that maybe you don't have a ton of types in the room to do that. This is another type like that.
Yeah, it's still another big swing. This is the first one where I think it is a little bit difficult for us to see the fit necessarily with the Chiefs defense.
Well, let's talk about that. Yeah, because you go first.
It's just this is the first one because he is not a guy that's going to be able to step in and particularly come out there and defend the run. You maybe not even going to get to that point ever. At 6'6" and being a guy whose frame that's as angular as it is and kind of narrow, he might not ever be a very dense run defender. So now you're kind of locking yourself into a designated pass rush type guy, which is something Steve Spagnuolo has not used in the past. So it's just intriguing to see him come in here. So it makes you start to wonder, are there influences coming in that no longer are just Steve Spagnuolo's preferences for this position? One easy jump is Brett Veach kind of transitioning to more athletic profiles. Another easy jump, and probably the one I think Kent wants to go to, is Joe Cullen getting a little bit more say in the defensive line room. It's an area that he coaches, and we've kind of been hypothetically talking about it for a while now.
I think they started flirting with the idea of a BJ Thompson, the idea of a Will McDonald since Joe Cullen's got here.
Yeah.
And it feels like when you're seeing some of these top 30 visits, and these were two of the outliers you see, I think, when you're looking at maybe some of the typical thresholds that Steve Spagnuolo has typically employed. And so there's been a little bit of trend there that my ears have been perked up, which made me a little bit more interested in the Will McDonald scenarios. And, it was intriguing just to think that, intriguing may not be the right word on Will McDonald. Just a potential for a more designated pass rush.
But the DPR part of that, the designated pass rusher part of that is so important because, yes, Steve Spagnuolo wants to have guys that he can play a light box with, that he can have out there on the field, that have that inside-outside versatility, can kick inside, play some 3-tech in the dime. Those are the guys that we are always so familiar with that he adds to the roster here. BJ Thompson, you're not going to kick him inside. You are going to line him out wide, and you're going to say, run by that tackle, win with speed. Now you've got another quick winner that you're adding to the roster. This dime rush could be really fun if they get BJ Thompson dialed in, which, again, a lot of work needs to be had. Rush counters, things like that he needs to develop, but always going to be the case as a day 3 dude from that. So you're fine with taking that gamble there. But speed with BJ Thompson, speed with Felix Anudike-Uzomah, speed with Charles Omenihu, and then you got Chris Jones on the inside, who's the quickest winner, along the Chiefs defensive line in a number of years. There's a lot of speed that they're adding to the dime defense. Now I'm starting to get a little excited about the pass.
Oh yeah, BJ Thompson. After the before and after kind of back and forth with him, outside of just the the interview setting was a lot of fun too. We kind of joked around with him a little bit because we got confused, or somebody in KC Sports Network got confused about whether or not an offensive tackle won a dunk contest at Baylor.
It might have been a staffer at the Shrine. Maybe.
I was fed poor information.
Listen, no, we absolutely love this pick, and it's one of these ones. It's hard because we all really liked him, and so now you can see from that interview that we all really liked and we enjoyed talking to him and stuff. But it's just a guy that we haven't talked about a lot in the process because nothing about his profile has led you to think that the Chiefs, based on their history, have been that interested, right?
Outside of top 30s,
right? And then so we started going through it, and we're going through the process, and he just didn't make sense from that regard.
Right.
But we love the player. We absolutely love everything that he brings. It's just interesting that we didn't talk about him as much leading up to.
And see, this is one of those that maybe you're looking at the KCSN draft guide. If you've got a copy of it right now, you'll see he's the 32nd ranked edge on here. But this is because of the stuff that he still needs to learn. The traits themselves are phenomenal, and the character of the individual is phenomenal, and that's what you love at this scenario. And the fact that they are taking probably a designated pass rusher it speaks to what the shift is happening within the Kansas City Chiefs.
And let's be clear here, potentially, because
initially, certainly,
I think a 5th round pick's not nothing. So this was a decent investment here to try to see if you can develop and build a designated pass rusher. Maybe they feel like they can put a little bit more weight on him,
and maybe
help
him
develop
because he's certainly got the length to play.
He's got
that sort of way.
He's got unique length. He doesn't fit the typical weight profile, or how he rushes is not typically what the Chiefs have typically got out of their defensive ends.
Yeah.
This is a more looser up the arc type pass rusher.
I mean, it's a big swing. Let's call it what it is. This is a big swing. It's another high risk, high reward because there is very easily a chance that he can't put on the weight and that, or not, I don't want to say easily, but like there's a chance he can't put on the weight and he can't play in this scheme.
Right.
And does not stick. That is in the realm of possibility based on the player. So it is a big, so there's a risk there, but it's also the reward is through the roof because of the upside as the pass rush potential that he has just based on the raw athleticism. And there are flashes of it transitioning to the field. This isn't somebody who's just a track athlete.
No.
You can see it on the field in spurts. It just needs a lot of polish.
It absolutely does. But a gamble that you're willing to make. I think a gamble that this is the athlete draft. I think we can label it the athlete draft.
Risk reward athlete draft.
We are through 5 picks here. Everybody has been terrific athletes for their position. Still have some ironing out with every single one of these prospects that you need to see, but they are taking big swings at big positions of value here. I love it building on the foundation that they've already built the past couple of years.
You know, BJ Thompson might have a little familiarity with KC because his brother, Blake Mack, was in camp with the Chiefs a few years back. I think he had a little scuffle with Daniel Sorensen, if I remember a moment with him.
He did.
So BJ Thompson might have been around St. Joseph before. He's going to be in St. Joseph here in a couple months for training camp. BJ Thompson, the defensive end out of Stephen F. Austin, an East-West Shrine Bowler, is the next defensive end for your football team, Kansas City. Can't wait to see how he fits with this team.